These are like 5 types. Like indifferent atheist means that people are too busy in their life. It's also coming from the Bhagavad Gita. Later, you will see this verse. We have seen this verse in the ninth also, that the four kinds of people who don't surrender. So indifferent atheists are people who are super busy, that they don't even have any thought space to actually wonder or worry about existence of God or anything like that. They're super absorbed. When you ask them, do you just believe in God? They start thinking. They don't know if they believe or not believe. They're too absorbed in their immediate life. So they're indifferent atheists in one sense. They are completely indifferent. They're just going about life. Philosophical atheists are people who actively come up with theories and findings and explanations to make sure there is an alternative explanation for everything without having to resort to God. It's very clear. Their motive is very clear that I don't accept the presence of God, so I come up with strong, by either scientific or philosophical or experimental ways to actually prove or undo the need for having a God. So they are called as philosophical atheists. And there are people who believed in God, but because of some bad experience personally or some kind of a mismatched expectation, they actually turn into atheists. So they are more emotional atheists. So there's like, how can there be God if I suffered this? So there is no God. So their understanding is because of their experience, out of resentment or being emotional, they become atheists. Covered atheists are kind of people who, like, they'll be very religious, but it's as good as, means I come from a part of India where I have seen a lot of this. Like they'll be going to temple, they'll be doing everything, and then the moment any kind of serious discussion comes, their real colors will start coming. I'm like, you just went to the temple and then you're saying, where is God? Then why did you go to the temple? So it's, they are religious, but they are also like kind of atheistic internally. And it's very weird. It can happen but through propaganda actually. It can happen through political propaganda, and usually political propaganda and social propaganda. That if somebody continuously looks down upon theism or devotional things, if in the society generally that is being looked down, so it gradually creates an impression. Though these people are externally following, internally they don't respect it. They think that is foolishness. Out of culture, they may do, but in their own mind, they have been like brainwashed to think that is stupidity. So that is covered atheism. And psychologists, atheist is like somebody who has taken up to the process for chanting and all of these things, but still very impersonal. They don't know, they haven't connected it to Krishna as a person. So it's not a very serious category. You can call them atheists, but it's just that after even practicing bhaktis, having started the practices, still the connection is not very clear for these people. They're still in their approaching it in a very impersonal way. And then naturally through the process of chanting and hearing, they're very highly likely that they'll establish a personal connection with Krishna. The more one starts chanting, I remember when I started chanting, I may be in all of these 5 stages all at the same time, but to give an example, I started chanting Hare Krishna. I remember like one of my friends asked me, like I was 17, 18, something like that. So this friend we would study together during examinations. So I was chanting in our terrace rooftop, and he came. It was like nighttime. I very clearly remember the scene in my head. And he came and he was like yelling at me like, tomorrow's exam. I told you you need to explain me this thing. What are you doing here? How old are you? Are you 60 years old standing and chanting this mantra? Have you become crazy? So then I remember telling him, okay, I'm almost done. I'm just going to come in a few minutes. Don't worry. We have got time. And I told him, like, what can this mantra do to me? Like, I'm just like, I like it. So I'm just chanting it. I don't think I'm not speaking to any saffron clad brahmachari or anything. At that time, I have not met devotees. Like, I'm not meeting any preacher. I'm not like getting brainwashed or anything like that. I'm just chanting this mantra and I'm liking it. It's nice. So I did have this conviction that the mantra cannot do anything to me. Though I was chanting, I was thinking, what can a mantra do to me? And it did. After 6 months, I completely felt a difference. So on a certain level, I could see that I was like more of a psychological atheist Though I was chanting, I didn't think the mantra is Krishna or the mantra has the potency to transform my heart. Because, of course, I was not knowing any philosophy. I just started chanting without having any background. But it was like little bit. And now thinking back, like, how did I think? And why did I do if I thought that it won't do anything to me? Then why did I continue to practice? I don't know. But it was very clear statement that I made to him. What can this mantra do to me? So don't worry. So it was a way of convincing him, like pacifying him. At the same time, in my heart also, I didn't think very seriously. I didn't know what was I getting into. So there's these kind of different consciousness can be there. And beyond all of these things, then there is personal connection, because these are all impersonal. So we cannot just put people in one box. We, as I said, I can be in any of these five at a given point, but still we are all trying to become more and more personal with Krishna. And yes, Krishna Prabhu and then Purva.
Yeah, so this is a very nice categorization. Is it possible for us to be in different buckets at different times of the day also? That was the first question. And then the second question is more, you don't have to take it, but I'm just wondering is the number of atheists in the world increasing? Because I think a lot of people fall into these categories that you mentioned.
Yes, for your first question, like at different times of the day, can we fall into some categories? To the extent we are becoming more and more Krishna conscious, our day becomes more harmonized. Otherwise, I do totally agree with what you're feeling. Like sometimes when I have to do things which are like very important, I'm like, I enter the temple room, I'm like, Radhamali there. So it's very natural, okay, very like focused on the work. But who am I doing it for? The more the heart can be very much connected, but it's not very easy to have that consciousness all the time. I can be standing in the kitchen, but I can be completely connected with Krishna, because if I have that consciousness, I can be in the backup room, I can be just like boiling milk, I can be pouring water. Sometimes that's, I feel like backup room is the most easiest place to be Krishna conscious for me personally. It's very easy because they're also very easy to get distracted, but still, this glass is for Krishna, you can pouring into it. As you say, Prabhu, sometimes, yes, our bathing, our day-to-day actions and office work or dealing with people, all these things can make that we are away from our spiritual consciousness. But the more actually we deeply connect during our times of actual sadhana, the more it actually carries over. So to extent we are like really focused in our chanting and in our reading, and we are very conscious what and we are devotionally connected, it can carry forward. And it's also a practice that we might have to work on. Okay, before starting this, like sometimes giving classes can be very anxious. Like the technology can create some trouble, and then last minute there is sometimes I feel like a child, like just before giving a class I'll have to use a washroom or something, so it just feels like you're ready and then you feel like, oh. So like you sometimes as a child, like you're ready, you're on the street to get into the car, and then like, mom, like I have to go to washroom. I'm like, no, at this time. Because so some things can actually take away our attention, can put us in anxiety. But again, like that's why following a culture is very good also. Okay, before giving a class, you start chanting Mangalacharan. Even if the mind was somewhere, you can try to bring as much as possible back and then offer prayers. And similarly, when we eat prasad, we eat food, so then we are taught to recite some prayers. And if you are, say, in a certain second initiated or something, there are times of the day where you chant some mantras. That is why the culture is very important of having these things. That is why the Vaishnava culture is there. That okay, when you eat, when you do this, all these things are not just rules for an sake of rules. Those rules are to actually again bring us to that level of connection. Okay, it's very easy to get disconnected. Okay, again get connected. So at least in the beginning of the activity, end of the activity, like that. So like beginning of the day, end of the day, middle of the day, somewhere you keep some tab. And then gradually, the more eager we are, it becomes more of a continuous flow. And I'm not sure if I answered your question, Prabhu.
No, absolutely, Prabhu. I think you answered it. I think what you're saying is that yes, we could fall into these traps, but then the Vaishnav culture is there to put us back on track, gradually, and then it will become a habit over the point of time, and then our faith will also increase.
Because we are also like trained in all these levels in the general world, we think rules, oh, I don't care. There is a natural push for any rules actually. Oh, rules are not important, it's the mood that is important. But the rules are like, because we don't have the mood in the beginning all the time, so the rules are there to help us develop that mood when we don't have it. So there was this disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He had the service he was a personal servant, so he had to go in and out of Prabhupada's room many times. So he had, every time he goes in, he had to offer obeisances and then go say something to Prabhupada, take something, and then come out. So he had to do it many times. So there are some times where he would just barge in and then he would do his stuff. So it is not because like he was asking him because he wanted to be respected, because that mode is when somebody is dealing with their spiritual teacher very closely, then it can become very casual. The same as a pujari, you may go in and out 100 times of the altar. You're supposed to knock on the door, you're supposed to make a noise. It does not matter how many times you go in and in, because it's a way to put us in place that, okay, I'm dealing with fire, guru, deities, these are all, they are considered fire. Any improper thing can actually cause problem. So that's why it is a, because we are not still fully there, it's a safety that the rules are given. And the more we actually understand the internally we are connected, those rules will become more relishable. Even if we don't understand, sometimes following some rules will actually can help us. Suddenly we are in the middle of the day, but when we are chanting Mahaprasadi, then if we are conscious, then it can bring us, it can give us that, what do you call, anchor.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
And the other question, yes, the world atheists are increasing. It's the effect of the age also. So the more we are actually connected strongly with Krishna in our own personal practice, we'll be able to help as many people within our ability. And whoever comes in touch with us can experience a different quality of life if we embody it. And that's the only way. I would say there is hardly any other way. With the influence of time and age, it's not easy. At the same time, that it also, a lot of people are looking for spiritual things. That is also true. There's lots and lots of people looking for something more than just materialism. They just sometimes don't know what they're looking for, and the conditionings that they have developed stops them from taking up to a process very strongly. I see these days people have a problem with committing to one path. They think just by shopping, spiritual shopping, sometimes to this place, that is that, they think they don't want to commit. They have the fear of committing to one path. However, in order to be actually understand, have an universal understanding, at least you need to go in deep into one path. Otherwise, it is not possible. So the more one actually commits themselves to one path, then it becomes easy for them to actually have a gauge of what is the transformation that they are experiencing. But if they are fortunate enough, if we could commit to the process of bhakti, then it surely we can develop an idea of what is going on with every other path. And it's also very easy and more universal. So these are some thoughts over your second, I won't say it's question, your opinion.
My question is closely related to the second question that you just answered. So these days in schools, children are taught that humanity is the only religion or humanity is the best religion. And the argument is that the core values taught by the majority of the religions are almost the same, which is like to make us a better human. And it may be true, but what should be our response be to that?
There is nothing wrong. It's one layer they are trying to cover. But to see that as the ultimate thing is the problem. If you see in this chapter later, Krishna will say, what are the qualities of devotees that makes them dear to him? So he says all those, if you read those qualities, they're like, that person will be an amazing individual to actually deal with, live with, and interact with. That's what we are hoping. But what we are thinking is, we want the benefit without having to go through a spiritual process. Even say, for example, if we just say a person, you be good, it's not a matter of intention alone. Being a good human is not a function of intention alone. Yes, it all starts with a good intention, but where is the process to become good? We agree that becoming a good person is actually, the soul is that good human, actually a good person. Ultimately, the soul is good. But what is our process to uncover that goodness of the soul? So we are saying Bhakti Yoga is the process to uncover that goodness of the soul, to establish the soul in its original position. So they are thinking more emotionally, but if they rationally understand, okay, what is my process? If it was just a matter of what do you call intention, that then why is it that everybody is not able to? Because people are under the influence of the three modes. Some are in the mode of goodness, some are not in the mode of goodness. So those who are in the mode of goodness, when their intention is to become better, they may apply their determination and they may actually become better because their ways of living is more mode of goodness. Still, it is all under the three modes, because the ego has to have an identity. So even if after becoming a good human, if that person is thinking I'm great, so that's going to be a problem on the ultimate level. So we are not saying it's not important to be a good human. We are saying it's a byproduct of practicing bhakti.
Thank you.
So then there is this idea of merging, especially the impersonal realization means they want to be situated in the Brahman. So we'll quickly see how love is a better way of closeness, because a lot of people think being great is to actually become one with the great. Like their idea of spiritual liberation is that I want to be one with that great Brahman, so I become great. Or sometimes they want to be so close, spiritually very close. That means like they just need to become one with the Supreme. That is how they become close with the Supreme. But in general world also, in relationship, closeness comes from mutual understanding. Sometimes we may be put in a situation where we are staying with someone and we may not be that close, but somebody who's far, with whom we have a mutual understanding or affection, we'll be much more close at heart with that person who's far away. So spirituality also, closeness is of course can be proximity also, but it's not just the proximity. It's about oneness of purpose. That's why Prabhupada said oneness that the Vaishnavas aim for is oneness of purpose with Krishna. So oneness in love. So closeness is about connection, not just proximity. Of course, even in proximity, it's the connection, it's the understanding and the love, but not just merging. Because the limitation of impersonal merging is that then there is this reciprocation of love becomes missing. It is just an existence, eternal existence. There is no relationship. In that sense, we can see Bhakti Yoga offers the highest closeness, that even in this world and in the spiritual reality, that the devotee can actually offer services to the Supreme. So it's more close, it's more intimate. So anyone in this world you can think is like those people who have actually helped you, served you, whom you love, you feel close with them. Sometimes they may not be physically always with you, but you reciprocate with them the most in your heart. So the same here also. So in the Bhagavad Gita also, in 12.2 also, Krishna is confirming that the devotees who are always meditating on him and endeavoring greatly to serve him, he says they are the most evolved yogis, and they are in the spiritual unity by their loving reciprocation. Not by losing oneself in the Brahman, just one becomes closer to God, rather by maintaining one's loving in an individual way, that one can actually become much closer to Krishna. So, any thoughts, any questions? So, real oneness is not about, this is pulled from Prabhupada, real oneness is not about losing individuality, but being in love with Krishna. So, Prabhupada states this as in the Ishopanishad, oneness in purpose or oneness in love. So, then the natural question comes, okay, if Krishna is personal and then I'm engaging in a personal process of worship, why do I sometimes feel disconnected from him in my practice? Which is very a common experience if you're engaging in bhakti yoga also. That there are times where we feel like, oh, I'm like in the dark. I'm just don't know where is Krishna in the equation. He is missing. It's very common. So feeling disconnected from Krishna in bhakti is like a cloud covering the sun. So the sun is always there. We are being covered by the cloud. So Krishna is existing. Sometimes we are under the influence of the modes, so our perception can create feelings of disconnection. And sometimes our practice is also inattentive without full investment. And Krishna is also a person. Say, for example, I'm not clear what kind of an example to bring this point out. Even in a workplace or in personal relationships, if they know what is your capacity, and if you're doing less, person can understand actually. And even when you do the same thing, there is today we can understand, okay, the person is not fully involved in the way the output has come, or in the way it is presented, or in the way we are dealing with someone. Even though we are there and we are doing everything, sometimes it's the connection is missing, because the emotion is not fully invested, the attention is not there, the attention is somewhere. So sometimes our emotions are all over the place. We can be very much multi branched in our feelings and emotions and in intelligence. So then the more we actually bring it back and have everything aligned, our lifestyle and our spiritual practice and our endeavor, if everything is aligned, so then gradually that connection will also come. So when we put ourselves without attention, it is not a mechanical process. So it, because it is a personal thing, it cannot just happen mechanically. Because I chanted my rounds today, I should feel spiritually connected. No, what kind of chanting it was like. And Krishna also expects more as we grow. What, when we were young, we ate like some baby food, a few spoons, we were okay. But now we have grown up, we need more quantity of food. So similarly, spiritually also, Krishna understands, okay, you're growing up, this is not enough. So he won't give that connection. He won't like let us have that connection when he sees that we have more ability, but we are not putting the effort. Then he will hide behind the cloud. So then the more we look, so then we will put more effort, then he will again come. So because it's a personal relationship, the dynamics is there. We don't control everything. There is another person in the equation. So that is why impersonalist, I don't want to deal with all of these things. I just want like a mechanical thing. But the thing is, there is no one on the other side to pull us up when in the Brahman realization. Brahman is not going to think of like coming and helping us. That is the thing with Brahman realization. It is by one's own effort one has to attain Brahman realization. But in with Krishna, he just says, okay, from your side, you raise your hands up and he is going to pull us out. So he is the one who's ultimately pulling us out, but all he wants us to be is like have that real feeling. And when naturally that comes, then connection also comes. And also sometimes strong association, going to the holy places, like, or like taking out time to engage in the process of hearing chanting seriously, personally, or in the association of devotees, serving, developing that mood of service. These things can be overlooked because life is so busy. There are so many things to do. So some of these things, when we neglect, they also actually create a vacuum in the heart, because all these things that Rupa Goswami gave, all of them have their needs, have their effect. So I have remembered once I was so down. I was invited for a yatra and I did not want to go because I was not feeling good. I thought, oh, I don't want to go in this kind of feeling spiritually weak or like a little bit confused. I thought, no, this is not the right mood to enter into the Dham. So I was trying to avoid. When you have friends, you cannot fully avoid. So there is no excuse works, especially Indian friends. They have their gentle way of forcing you. So I was like, I ended up going there. And believe me, I stayed there for so many days in the association of devotees, attending all the programs and taking darshan of Jagannath Ji and everything. After a week, I could not recognize myself. I had become a complete different person. I had become so spiritually surcharged. And this is not the person who came into the Dham. And I did not come with like eagerly, I was coming very hesitantly. But just being in that space, because Dham also has its spiritual energy, it's more highly concentrated. And in the association of devotees, that is also very important. Even in the Dham, I have had experiences of being completely spaced out. But in the right association, in the right place, then I felt like so much uplifted. And to experience that gives that experience can act like a template in my mind. Okay, it's not that I cannot become spiritually uplifted, it's just that currently in my current situation something is missing. So some festival, sometimes suddenly we feel like a great ecstasy in one kirtan, suddenly we experience something. So on a particular day it's so easy. So then Krishna gives taste, but he wants us to put effort. Okay, how can I, it's not mechanical to recreate, we need to genuinely and towards Krishna and spend that time and connection, establish and be sincere. Then it is very easy to come. But without effort it won't happen, because it is a personal relationship. So try ours, look where our efforts could be improved. That's one. thing that I can think of for this question. Any opinions, any thoughts? So practical steps to reconnect. I think without coming to this slide, I already spoke about these things, but the additional points are self-awareness, because there are sometimes the immediate feelings is stopping us from connecting with Krishna. I am hurt, or I am distracted, or I am under some temptation. There is something which is immediately happening, which is acting like that cloud, which is keeping me strongly under the influence of the three modes. So without understanding it, sometimes just picking up the mala may not help, because in why my hand is inside the bead bag, but my mind is inside my feeling. So then it becomes very difficult. Both are important. It's not, there is no sequence. It's not that only when you become fully self-aware then you start chanting. I'm not saying that. Take whatever time is possible apart from the sadhana to look into that. What are you running away from? What are you trying to avoid? Or what are you resisting in life? So that is also a very important thing. Sometimes we are resisting a lot of reality. That is the reality, at least in my life. Like, we tend to resist a lot of reality. So how can we become, I understand that, accept that, and see what we can do the best. And also the general lifestyle is not very sattvic, so then that also creates trouble. And then attention in our practice, and of course association. These four things can be helpful. A lot of times we go straight to 3 and 4, and we see that they will act like a quick fix for the first two. So the first two is personal endeavor. The next two is also personal endeavor, but it's more communal. More here, Krishna is there in the practice. Here, devotees are there. So yes, for this connection to happen, sometimes I feel in my life personally, these first two things creates much more of a block. Even with when I am sitting to chant, like these are the things which boils up, and so I don't need to stop my chanting. At least do what you need to do, and then come back, and in the rest of the time see, okay, what can I actually, what is that I'm resisting. So that is the process of letting go. Then it becomes much easier. And for these also we can seek support of help from others to become more aware what's going on, and to develop this lifestyle which can be more conducive. That also we need the support. So these are some of the thoughts I thought I had to be able to reconnect and experience Krishna's presence in our sadhana. So character analysis, like why is Arjuna asking this question at this point of time? What's his problem? Why is he letting the conversation go far more? He could have ended Gita earlier. The thing is, as I already explained in the beginning, Krishna had declared in the last chapter 54 and 55 verses that how through pure devotion one can actually know him, and especially experience the form. So that is why Arjuna's natural question is, oh, but what about those who seek formless and manifested Brahman? Where do they stand? If only with devotion you can understand the form and it's so rare, then what is the status quo of people who are attached to the formless and manifested Brahman? So that is why this whole question he is asking, and then the rest are there. We are closer to the end. Let us finish at least the first 7 verses today. So, is form an illusion? I'm picking up themes which can all come up in relation to these verses. So, the other theme I could think of in these verses is there are people who think, oh, form is illusion, it goes away. So, spirituality means it should be formless. So, as we all know, we have heard many times from Prabhupada how there is material form, there is spiritual form. So, it's like the negative axis and the positive axis, but there is a zero axis in between. So, the impersonal understanding is like that. It's not positive, but it is neutral. And that is the type of forms that Srila Prabhupada explains, that how the spiritual form and the material form, the difference is the spiritual form is eternal. It exists, extends beyond time. And also, Prabhupada says that there is a philosophical flaw in denying form for the Supreme Lord. So, what is that? What is that philosophical flaw? Because if we say that God is omnipotent, and then if He is omnipotent, and if we have form, and how can we say God cannot have form? At the same time, it's also again wrong to say God does not have that impersonal form either. So that is why Bhagavatam reconciles. Yes, the Supreme Absolute Truth has 3 features: the personal feature as well as the impersonal feature. Both are there. We don't need to deny the impersonal feature. We don't need to deny the personal feature. Both exist. Because denying either will create problem with this concept that God is a philosophical flaw of that God is omnipotent, but he does not have this ability. And also material form actually deludes, because it actually distracts, or it actually deludes is the right word, I would say. The material forms usually deludes our consciousness, but spiritual form actually purifies. So sensuality actually deludes, but the spiritual form is not sensual. It's not just a mere sensual experience. Because of that, like, that is why deity worship is practiced. So when that purifying experience can come from worshipping, connecting with Krishna's form. And also in this very chapter, Krishna spoke about the practical challenge of the formless path, that it's very difficult for us to focus on something which does not exist. Like Brahman is in our meditation, you just have to see an empty thing, which is not our natural. It's not natural for the soul, but some people may be attracted to that. But the process is too difficult. Krishna says for someone who is embodied, this path is very difficult. He says klesha. So the 12.5, the verse says, I just quoted the verse, I'm forgetting. What is the first line I said? Klesho adhikatarastesha. Klesha means what you call trouble. Adhikatara. It's very troublesome. It's not just troublesome. Klesho adhikatarastesham. Krishna is very clear in saying what he is saying. He says it's too difficult, and also dukkam, it causes so much difficulty. And this is the understanding that we may think form is illusion, but it's not that all forms of illusion. There are spiritual forms which is not illusion, and we can experience that even just by worshipping the deities, if we can feel the transformation. And true spiritual progress isn't about rejecting form, but about shifting attraction from the temporary form to the eternal form. So we don't need to reject. The problem is not in the form itself. The idea of form itself or having form is not the problem, but our infatuation with the temporary form is our problem. So the more we get spiritually purified, that infatuation reduces, and then we will be able to connect with the spiritual form. And the last theme is a lot of people, Madharendra.
What do you mean by we're infatuated with the temporary form?
Like usually there is a strong consciousness, I am this body, and I see others also in the same consciousness. So because of this attraction, especially the path of jnana is a path of renunciation. They are more the first you take renunciation, and then you follow the process of jnana yoga, or even for dhyana yoga beyond a certain stage you have to go to the forest. So for when they close their eyes, what's going to come? So if the attachment to the temporary form is there, bodily consciousness is there, that will boil up here. Vishwamitra is practicing meditation for so many years. But when the heavenly girl comes and dances, then immediately the attraction is taken away. Because it is internally still the infatuation for the temporary bodily consciousness is there, then it gets attracted. Because this infatuation is there, the serious spiritual seekers in jnana and dhyana yogas, they try to say, okay, form is the problem, is the biggest obstacle. Because the moment the temporary form comes into the picture, then naturally the mind gets agitated. So that's why they don't want any form. So for them, any form can be distracting. But the idea is, but the understanding here is, it's not the form which is the problem, it is our consciousness. So once that is purified, and we'll be able to deal with both the temporary form also properly, and also we'll be able to relate with, of course, be able to understand the spiritual form also better. So it's a more, that is why we saw this thing. Because material form is very difficult, these people think, okay, I'll negate it, that's all. But beyond that, as the neutral axis, there is the positive spiritual form which they don't want to explore, but there is spiritual form. So because of this, they may philosophize saying the impersonal Brahman is the Brahman, the ultimate reality is impersonal, no form exists there. But the philosophical form with that is that you are actually denying the Supreme Lord his spiritual form, which he has. So that is a philosophical flaw. And they may say, oh no, this form can disturb us. No, when you connect with the Krishna's form through proper rituals and with the proper way, then that can be actually purifying, which can help us actually overcome the infatuation of the material form. We will lose taste for the material infatuation through worshipping of Krishna. So Instead of saying the spiritual form does not exist or can distract, it is through the spiritual form we can actually overcome our infatuation for the material form. Does that make sense now?
Yes, it's funny. I was listening to you before and I thought I got it, and then suddenly it went away. But yes,
because I think I also did not emphasize it fully in that angle, so it was helpful for you to ask, so I
Okay.
could connect it
Thank
fully.
you.
Because I put the points, I don't know the notes before me, like whatever I thought and I put, I don't have it. So again, now I'm saying whatever is coming to my memory, but when you ask question, it becomes easy to connect those points. Thank you.
So my question is, Prabhu, we know that the Gnanis and the other type of yogis, they take renunciation path first, as you said, right? And they want to isolate from this world, right?
Mhm.
And want to like not
Liberation,
having any association
mukti.
and everything, right? So
Yes.
my question is that enough? Is like getting disassociation from that form or detachment in
Mhm.
this life itself is enough, like they would get rid of everything, or like the attachments that they carried so far, if you're able to detach in this life itself, is it enough, or like the attachments that they carried, or we have been carrying so many millions of lifetimes, right?
Mhm.
Those would still haunt us even after getting detached.
That's exactly what Krishna is saying in the verse 4 and 5. If you see, and that is why he is saying, for those minds who are attached to the impersonal feature, advancement is troublesome, because all those things which is inside is going to boil up, and it's going to take time to actually remove those, just through the process of jnana yoga. It's going to take longer time, and that's why he's saying avyaktahi dukkham. It creates too much trouble, because internally there are so much attachments which is going to boil up and distract, and again the help is just their own effort. So again they would have to pull themselves up, and so it's like a lot of effort. There is, on the other side, Krishna is saying, okay, if you take shelter of me, it becomes much easier. But there are people in this world who would prefer it to be impersonal. They are okay, they are so militaristically, they are like, no, they don't want to deal with form, because they have this understanding that all forms are maya, illusion.
Yeah, even devotion also. Like I feel sometimes attracted to some. Most of the time, I feel like in that. I feel like some days we'll be very devotional, right?
Yes.
And we feel very detached, right?
Mhm.
And the next day, right?
It
We
can be
don't know what
different.
happened. Immediately get that attachments. I'm worried. Even ourselves, like in the devotion, the highest path, ourselves feel this kind of thing. What about them, right? I feel like that actually.
Like what Rupa Goswami says is, if we slip and fall on a path, we again take shelter of the same earth and support of the same earth. We start and stand up and start walking on that same path. If you are slipping and falling on a muddy road or something, you again take shelter of the same road, get up, and again continue to walk. So as you're saying, because internally there are so many things, then we do have experience disturbance. So that is the stage of anishtata bhajan. There is constant disturbance, trying to go this direction, but is like is like all the it's like not very easy. But the more we become focused on our basic sadhana, as we said in the previous slide, becoming more aware what is distracting us, and how can I actually create a protective fence around me, what kind of lifestyle can actually help me reduce these influences, what kind of personal practice and support system I need to be able to do it. Because just because it's never going to be like super easy. If we not today, in the next life we would have to do it, if not now. So at some point we have to remove what is troublesome, and that is always it's very easy to put what is troublesome, but to remove it takes a lot of effort. So Krishna will also make us regret developing the attachments that we developed. It's so in that process we will develop the realization where we will not create more unnecessary attachments.
So that means like by this end of this life, if you get into that detached state, right?
Mhm.
So is that the ultimate perfection? Or suppose assume that like I got the detachment in between, like when I'm
Mhm.
like maybe in 50s, 60s, right? Detachment, right? Like somehow in 70s or 80s, you may get attached again, right? In 90s, if I go, right? Assume that if I go that long. So if I get that
I'm
detachment that
impressed you're
time,
willing to live until 90.
if I get that detachment that time,
I'm not.
and if I pass that time, is that the perfection or what is that thing? Or is it going never ending?
No, again, if you read books like Madhurya, these are stages called as Anishtita Bhajan. Here, there is a clear explanation of 5 stages at least. And the super details are not given in the book, but the overall thing details are given. So we are currently in a state of Anishtita Bhajan. So the more the Anartha Nivritti gets covered, like the more we actually engage in the real processes of bhajan in a deeper way, then naturally the consciousness will come and we'll become more stable, we'll feel more connected to Krishna. So the whole idea is like we have to develop the consciousness of being a servant and engage in the processes with that consciousness when we actually chant. And we also need to become clear why we are chanting, why we are doing bhakti. So the philosophical understanding is also very important so that the practice remains pure. And when it is done with the right quantity and of time and the quality, then surely we will all be experiencing that strong connection and also the clearing of consciousness. And the moment you start seeing little clearing of consciousness, you gain more confidence. Oh, if this works, and I can just go forward and next step like that. So the initial threshold is slightly higher, but once that threshold is like touched, then you will get confidence. Even though everything has not cleared up, you'll have the confidence, okay, and if I have come this far, I'll be able to go further.
Got it. Oh, thanks.
And you have come so far, and that the stability that already I know by knowing you personally, that you already show in terms of the stability, in terms of services and things, it is as a very good stage. And because you have more ability, Krishna is giving that feeling in the heart, okay, you could actually go more further deep. So it's a nudge. That is why it is a personal relationship. Now he knows, okay, you have come to this level, can become, it's not the end, like you can still go further. So sometimes there is this feeling of disconnection is there, so that we still have more capacity. So then Krishna pushes, okay, if you continue to do the same thing, it's good what you have come, but if you do little more, you will get better. So he keeps moving the goalpost. There is this thing. Sometimes you want the child to walk with you. You say, okay, come until here, that's all. So as the child walks towards you, you start walking further. So the child like, no, you told me 10 steps. Yeah, like 10 more steps, like that. So Krishna knows where he wants us to take. So he is moving the goalpost. He's increasing the bar.
Thank you, Prabhu. Give your blessings so that I'll do that. Hare
I need your blessing. Hare Krishna. I did see Krishna Prabhu's hand raising. So the problem is in form itself, but our infatuation with the temporary form. And the last thing, it's already 10. What was the question? Okay, Parnika, can I just finish this and then take your question? So a lot of people may think the supreme, the form isn't, because there are a lot of impersonalists also, or especially Mayavadis, they also do a lot of deity worship. So the idea is that, hey, if you don't believe in spiritual form, then what is this? Why are you worshipping? So they may use it as an aid for their meditation. But when we do deity worship, when we actually think of form and worship form, we are not seeing it as an aid for meditation, actually the goal of meditation. So there is a different understanding. You can go to the Govardhan Puri Mart and you will see there are deities there, Radha Krishna deities sometimes. And you're like, okay, these people are supposed to be impersonalists. More than that, they are supposed to be like Mayavadis. Like, how are they worshipping the form of the Lord? So their understanding is like, when I realized now I'm worshipping this deity as like a ladder, like I use it to climb. And when I actually realize I'm also God, we'll become the same. So some kind of weird explanation they have. Externally, it may look like people are worshipping deities, but they may use it as an aid. But for us, the Lord that we are worshipping is the goal of our meditation. It's not just an aid for our meditation. It's not just a concentration point or a symbol or a symbolical object to meditate on. Like even versus people who meditate on red bulb, blue bulb, there are organizations which focuses on red light to meditate on. So that is even worse. At least worshipping a deity is still better, but worshipping it with a bad intention makes it worse. So effort versus mercy, this is another big topic. And the whole Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is of two lines because of this difference. Okay, is it my effort or is it Krishna's mercy? So as Achintya Vedadeta, we Gaudiya Vaishnavas bring this together in the Damodar Leela. Mother Yashoda's endeavor, when seen by Krishna, he says, okay, now I can be, he says, okay, now I can be tied. So then he gets tied. So without our effort, sometimes mercy can come, because mercy by definition is we are not qualified. However, Prabhupada gives a good example. He says, okay, somebody may get a honorary PhD, doctoral degree. But if I think, oh, I'll become a doctor, I will get a doctorate degree, someone will offer me an honorary degree, so I won't study. Very unlikely, very rare. The chances are very slim. So we do our best, and we have the faith that Krishna will do his best. So that's slightly a difference. Recently, I was on an interfaith thing and I was speaking to a Christian, and I did appreciate it a lot of, we didn't have enough time to speak. Like, we really connected on many points. And one of the points the person said was, which I really appreciated, was that, like, I'm so sinful, just by my own effort I cannot reach God. So actually Jesus is that intermediary link who actually brings me in touch with God. So the same guru principle that we have. So during initiation, guru also takes away the sins. So it's the same concept, but they have made it more narrow by saying, I don't need to do anything. Like, from my side, where they are actually creating, where the problem comes is my belief that Jesus will save me, or my faith in Jesus is enough. I don't need to do anything. But what we are saying is, what Krishna is saying is, having the belief is one thing, but on a daily basis, how do you maintain that belief? Faith is not just a feeling. So for the consciousness to become purified, our sadhana is not that we don't believe in Krishna's grace. Our sadhana is to actually not qualify us for Krishna's grace, but to actually keep us pure, to maintain that desire to actually be close to Krishna. Because otherwise our consciousness will become completely covered. That is why we will see some sampradayas, I don't know, it's already 10:17, it's a big topic. So I'll try to be short. Like, there are some spiritual paths very highly evolved, philosophically and culturally much more refined people I have seen in my life, very refined lifestyle and culture. However, I do know them closely, so I can say when I came to ISKCON, I could see a difference in ISKCON, because the daily sadhana made a normal practitioner much more spiritually consciousness than these exalted people coming from very strong spiritual families, and their homes are with so many rituals and so many nice culture. Very good. I'm saying in a positive way, very refreshing. When I used to go to their places, it used to be so nice and such a spiritual experience. However, when I started interacting with the devotees, I could see a quality difference, because the daily sadhana made the difference, because their eagerness for being closer to Krishna, was that fire was continually kept up on a daily basis through the daily sadhana. So that is why the Prabhupada's formula of chanting every day actually keeps that fire on. So that is our effort. That effort is not to think that our effort alone will take us back. It is ultimately Krishna's mercy. Still, the reason we continue to do sadhana is to protect ourselves, not to become contaminated in this world. Because if surrender is just one moment, and then again I go back in my own way, then it will not work. So that surrender is a continuous moment to moment thing. And to actually keep it up, then we need the support of the sadhana. Otherwise, we are all devotees, but if we give up the sadhana, then we can become pretty much like materialist sooner or later. So the personal sadhana is what actually keeps us continuously in that devotional mode. So it is very important. We can be like socially devotees. Lifestyle wise, we can become devotees. If you practice bhakti for a while in ISKCON, then you can live without onion, garlic, without meat. So there are people I know, they have had difficulties in their practice, but lifestyle has become this. So we are not like devotees that because of their lifestyle. If you don't eat onion, garlic, if you don't eat this, if you don't, that is not the sign of a devotee alone. That is maybe one aspect of it. But the real thing is that keeping that fire in their heart of wanting to be a servant of Krishna. So that happens by the process of sadhana, by chanting regularly. So that effort does not to think that, oh, with my effort, I'll achieve the mercy of God. However, it does not mean just because I now have faith in Krishna, I don't need to do anything. I'll just be the rascal I am. And because I have faith in Krishna, Krishna will save me. Yeah, we can try Ajamel's route, but there is no guarantee we'll be able to chant Narayan at the end. So it's better to actually take the process, what the acharyas have given. So that's why effort versus mercy. Krishna says, if you do what you can, in the 6th and 7th verse, if you see in the Bhagavad Gita, it's very clear. Krishna is not saying, I'll just save, you don't need to do anything. Krishna is clearly saying, but those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, for them I am a swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So he is expecting something from us. So there is two sides of the equation. Yes, Krishna is that merciful deliverer, but his hands are always extended. But if we keep our hands closed, then we cannot catch hold of it. So Krishna is saying, you also raise your hands, I will pull you. That's all. All you have to do is raise your hands. And that itself is a lot he is expecting. He's saying, okay, you have to be engaged in devotional service and always be meditating on me. Basically, we have to be eager to go back. And that eagerness has to be not just a feeling, but a reality. And that is why it is an easier path, because it's not like Brahman. It's not like that stick in which a rope is tied and it is dropped inside, so that the person who's in the well has to climb using the rope. Here, there is an active person holding the rope. So they will, if you catch hold of that rope, that person will pull you out of the well. So with Krishna, there is reciprocation. With Brahman, there is no reciprocation. So that is the difference. Oh, why did I create so many slides? Is it really true that Krishna takes care of his devotees, or is it just a comforting belief? But Krishna is clearly saying, like in this verse 6 and 7, if you do your part, be completely sure I'll take care of you. It's not just a comforting belief, it's a reality. He's already pulling us out. To the extent we are fixed, he is pulling us out. And to the extent we are holding the rope, we experience that already here. And surely, in so many experiences in the Bhagavatam and also in real life of the devotees, we see Krishna takes care. It's not a belief, it's a reality. And if going to the spiritual world is not, we can just gate crash the spiritual world. So there is no illegal immigration possible into the spiritual world. Can like what do you call, it's not like the American border. Infiltration is not that easy. So between the material world and the spiritual world, it's not that we can just go without being qualified. So the legal immigration to the spiritual world is through the process of bhakti. By actually practicing what is given in the verses 6 and 7, we can actually go. So some may think, oh, the impossibility of infiltrating means that Krishna does not want us there. If he wants us there, he would have made it easy, right? If you keep your doors open, anyone will come. The problem is not if easy access. The problem is, will we be happy? Because in the spiritual world, everything is revolving around Krishna. If we are not egoistically purified, we'll be miserable being there in the spiritual world. Imagine going to a place where you are nobody and everything is focused on someone else. We feel irritated. Who's this person? Why everybody is behind this person? Why everyone is serving that person and I have to serve that person? So without developing the service attitude, without actually developing that love, it will be, even if we get entry into the spiritual world, we'll not be happy. Got the entrance into the Vaikuntha, at least the gates, and still he was in anxiety because he was not in the right consciousness. So if Krishna is so eager, then why does he make the criteria so strict? It is not that the criteria is strict. The criteria is basically, if you love Krishna, then you'll be happy there. Otherwise, it will not be comfortable. So again, just tapping all these verses. Krishna's question, Arjuna's question, Krishna's answer, that how the personal path is preferred by Krishna and the impersonal path, the difficulty and the advantage of the bhakti path, that how Krishna swiftly delivers his devoted followers. And lessons we have already discussed, how Krishna is not a passive object of meditation. He is an active partner in our devotion. And with his grace, though we have personal struggles, when we persist and keep up the process, Krishna's grace will naturally come. And this quote is about impersonal versus personal. The heart longs for love, not just peace. Yes, sometimes when life is very hard, we want peace. Wish the day was peaceful. But more than that, we look for happy experiences, spending time with people whom we love, going out to places we like. So experience of love and happiness is much more for which the heart longs for than just peace. And this question we can all meditate on. Do I see spirituality as a relationship with the divine, or just as a means to an end? Is it just I want to be spiritually liberated, spiritually advanced, or anything like that? Or we are approaching it as, okay, here is Krishna. I want my relationship with Krishna to be stronger. So the more we approach it personally, then the process becomes much more expedited. Because we are again trying to, when we think of the bhakti process as a means to an end, then we are approaching it as an impersonal way. Though we are trying to follow a personal path, we are approaching it in having an impersonal approach. So thank you all. And we will see the next verses in the coming week. Thank you. I think I became a little over ambitious trying to address so many angles within these 7 verses. I didn't realize that I had so many slides. So thank you for your patience. Sorry for the extended class today. So see you all next week. And yes, Parnika is still there. If any of you want to take your leave, please. Yes, Parnika, I'm here.
Actually, it's actually a really good starting point for my questions, multiple questions, because a lot of the time people will begin talking about, okay, there's the spiritual world and there are so many other things over there, and they will make that their goal rather than seeing it as like a pure relationship, to have a relationship with the divine and aiming for that. But also, as you said, there are two people in the relationship. So how does one go about enriching this relationship, beginning it, or even pouring emotion and effort into it?
To begin with, the sadhana is that way actually. The chanting and the hearing. Initially, it looks a little impersonal, but the more we present ourselves, like we apply ourselves to the process, so then we will start feeling that how the holy name is not just a sound, but it is also Krishna's personal presence and the deity. So gradually, initially, it can all these elements of the personal path also might seem little impersonal.
Okay. And the other question I had was like, because we were talking about form and like the different forms that we'll like see, like material forms. But at the end of the day, like any material form that we see is also born out of Krishna's energy. If we really think about it, it is just our vision that is honestly not good enough for us to be able to see that this is coming from Krishna's energy and that Krishna is the proprietor of all of it. So like, how should we receive things around us in our day-to-day life? And how should we see this distinction? Because technically, actually, everything is, Krishna's, and it is all born out of his energy.
What you're saying is right. It's the problem is not in the form itself, it's in the consciousness. Like how that's why Krishna is saying in the 10th chapter, like among all mountains I'm Himalayas, I'm among shark, I'm like among the water aquatics animals, I'm shark. Like in this way he's giving all these worldly examples. They are like literally manifest, they are material forms. Like when if I can, like I'm the taste in the water, or I'm the purifying effect of the fire and all these things. So if we have the ability to connect with those things in that consciousness, then they can uplift. So the thing is, but we cannot take it as an like an excuse and try to relate with anything. We need to understand what disturbs me currently in my current level of consciousness, and there are certain things which can take me away from Krishna. So those things, even if, though everything comes from Krishna, not everything can take me to Krishna. So we need to connect with those things which can actually take us closer to Krishna. Though everything comes from Krishna, not everything can take us towards Krishna when we connect with them. So we need to know what is our limitation, what is our weakness, and accordingly we need to connect. And the more and more we learn, actually practice. Prabhupada says, okay, even if somebody is drinking water, if they can think, oh, the taste, while drinking water, if they can think of Krishna. So it's basically a training. Then gradually it becomes easy to connect with the things of this world in that consciousness. But we also have to be careful. Whatever we are connecting, is it taking us to Krishna or taking us away from Krishna? If it is not, then we have to, at this stage, sometimes practice restraint. Some things we have to stay away from, and some things which are helpful, we can see how we can connect it. I'm not sure if we discussed this earlier, that in relation to the form, I think in relation to desires, we discussed that some of the forms can be dovetailed, some of the forms can be have to be given up. So the same way, am I answering your question? Is it making sense?
Yes, it is making sense. And I think the first step is to really be honest with ourselves. So, yeah.
Is it taking me towards to Krishna? Though everything is coming from Krishna, not everything may take us to Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I think, you've also you've maybe mentioned it, or someone else has mentioned it before, that what is favorable and unfavorable, those two legs, right?
It's the first two steps of surrender. True.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Everyone, see you all soon. Hare Krishna.